How are you doing, Yogesh? Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm doing fine. I was listening to the panel. Indeed, means I think this is a topic which I guess, if not most of the operators are going through in a way or other. So yes, doing fine. Beautiful day in Stockholm. So yeah, good.
Okay, so Yogesh, maybe we could just begin by you bringing us up to date about exactly where Tele2 is with its 5G deployment, please.
Yeah, maybe I can start, if you may, Annie, a little bit, take a step back and what is Tele2? So I think Tele2, we are a telco operator having fixed and mobile assets with a very strong ambition to serve our customers and also to aspire to become the smartest telco. So I think that's a journey we are on. 5G is a platform which brings cloud live, which brings compute to the edge. And actually, it also kind of gives the mass scale, especially in IoT and others. It creates that not only latency, but it creates that scale platform. And we believe that this is a platform, and that's why we are spending a lot of time in designing and mobilizing, as this platform will stay with us for the next decade. So it's very, very important milestone for us, and we take it extremely coordinated, seriously, and from a customer point of view.
Okay, so when we were in conversation before this session, you talked a lot about design and mobilization. Could you explain a little bit more, Yogesh, what you mean by it and what the implications are, please?
Yeah, so from a Tele2 perspective, the better you design, the better results you can reap afterwards. And mobilization is all about around the customer, how data centric we can become. And data, I don't just mean gigabits of data. I'm talking about making ourselves much more data driven, fact driven. Where are the customers? How do we take not only 5G on the mobile, but 10G on the fixed together? How do we converge the demands, because we are an essential utility? And COVID times have shown it even more clearly that if there is water, electricity, gigabit just stands next to it. And if not, sometimes even more important, you can live without 2 hours of water supply maybe at home, but a gigabit needs to be always there, present. So design is very much around data centricity. Design is very much around energy efficiency. How do we not just layer up one more cost structure in our P&L, but actually take a step back and lean our cost structure? How we can become more sustainable, not only using renewable energy, which is a good blessing for many parts in Europe, but actually push the bar a little bit higher to say that how we can use the full spectrum from 700 megahertz to 3.5 and yet reduce our operating cost, produce those gigabits at a much, much lower cost. So I think that is the way we are thinking. And that's why maybe a little bit robotic term, but design and mobilization is where the genesis of the planning for the customer, around the customer, starts for us.
Also, maybe, Yogesh, you could explain the slightly unusual situation in Sweden concerning network sharing and how that's about to change and how that could also contribute to sustainability and more efficient operations, which ultimately benefits the customer and other stakeholders.
It's a very good point. Sweden definitely is unique in many perspectives. On this one, we do have network sharing, so we share our networks completely. And we believe in that because it's not only good for um, sort of the cost base, but it's environmentally more friendly, and it actually leads to a much more healthier construction going forward. We have two network sharing agreements, and we have a target to move towards a unified one network sharing agreement. With that, we will improve our operating cost, of course. We would densify the network in the urban areas. We have a great partnership with Telenor in that, and what we see is by doing that, we actually improve the environment. We use completely renewable energy, and we actually modernize our whole radio stack, for lack of a better word, and use the full frequency spectrum and reduce the per gigabyte energy consumption in a very big way. So I think if I look through all those things put together, it will definitely help the environment. It will help our customers as well. And I think it's our very high on our agenda to be sustainable, because it's not for the first, as I mentioned before, 5G as a platform is for the next decade. And we have to, whether there'll be new technologies, 6G, others coming, but the base of mass scale cloud and edge compute is being enabled by 5G. So we take it extremely seriously.
Okay, Yogesh, and what are the implications for 5G and fixed mobile convergence? And that might be in terms of your core network, or it might be also in terms of offers to customers.
Both. And I think we are sitting in a conference and we are remote, yet we are present. I think, and that is what, when we say convergence, it's not just the fixed line, which is moving to 10G and the 5G mobile combining. It's actually what's right for the purpose. In many cases, 5G can give the access route straight, which can be a fixed access, fixed wireless access. There are enterprises which are looking for 5G solutions. So when we say fixed mobile convergence, there are traditional fixed mobile customers which can gain much better service, billing, provisioning by addressing together. And of course, services like TV, which go on cable and also go on air. I think it would be very interesting to look that complete with the fixed mobile convergence. That's one. When it comes to the remote areas, which we have quite a lot, how do we reach them with the high speeds? 5G gives us a possibility of the fixed wireless access as well. And then when we have a lot of big enterprise clients, and 5G enables for us to reach those clients and make sure that we understand that enterprise. It's almost like you'd have a CTO per enterprise, you can imagine. And how do we improve that enterprise? And that's where also the fixed capacity which comes with fiber, how can we use 5G on top of that? So I think those are the scenarios I hope I'm able to explain.
Okay, so Yogesh, you just said that you almost feel like you've got you need a CTO per big enterprise customer. How does that work with the economies of scale?
I think that is the balance to find. Though that is a dilemma to crack. So while there are parts which can be replicated, there are parts which need to stay in. But what we see, it's not only about hyperscalers and compute, it's about the issues enterprises are facing, whether it is license management, software asset management, a production efficiency, or connectivity to various remote locations. And I think those kind of use cases, once you go through and we are doing those exercises, there are parts which can be standardized and replicated. But in order to have that dialogue, we need to become a B2B to C organization. So I think that's why this so-called CTO term for me is that we need to be more understanding that enterprise customer and understanding what we can bring to that and be able to define. And in the back, in the offices, in the production factory, we should be able to then segregate. These are the standardized portions in the kernel, while these are the edge portions, which are the corner cases which we need to address.
And how far along that process are you with talking to enterprises? And when do you really see the enterprises coming on board with 5G?
The process is ongoing as we speak. So, and I really hope we can share some results by the next year, absolutely early part of next year. And enterprises, of course, we have them providing connectivity today. When I say enterprise network B2B to C, is how do we increase the depth of our connectivity and involve ourselves in their business processes to help them solve their business issues. So that kind of level, step up and maturity is where we are in our thinking.
Okay, so that also implies you're going to have to work a great deal more within ecosystems to serve enterprise customers, whether that's hyperscalers or whether that's companies that specialize in production machinery or whatever that is. And I mean, is that part of the process that you're really involved with now?
Absolutely. And I think IoT stands right in the middle. Ecosystem, you named it right, whether it is the data center companies, whether it's the edge compute companies, whether it is actually, yes, so it is the ecosystem. And we cannot, at least we don't believe in Tele2 that we want to just work alone. I think this is about partnerships, this is about common purpose, and the purpose needs to be centered around the customer and the business.
And are you talking to new partners, maybe maybe customers and other companies you haven't worked with before? Would you say there is a strong sense of common purpose?
It depends on which levels we are talking. Of course, on a strategic level, I think there's a great deal of awareness which has been created over time. But as I normally say, that devil is in the details. So the more we become use case driven, the more we really hone on to the pilots, and the more we really see the role and the handovers between different parties, the better it becomes. And we see that in IoT journey of with the elderly homes and others. We see that, and it becomes very clear when you get into use cases. And I think that's where I would say that we need to get into and learn and be open-minded.
Okay, so kind of learning by doing. And at the moment, what do you think are the most important or will be the most important use cases?
Security is a very big use case. I mean, we know with all the data protection, data sovereignty, security becomes much more kind of important in many different ways. So I think those use cases stand out. Remote connectivity, especially when it comes to alarms and generation from massive IoT. I think that's a use case we see, and also it becomes on public and government agencies. I mean, there are connectivity which is needed, whether it's transportation networks or whether it is security networks on police and others. So I think it becomes very clear that these use cases are standing out much more. And then there would be very specific use cases on airport authorities and others. So I think there's a big kind of range, but I would say these would be the ones which would stand out right now.
And have you got any thoughts about how that might evolve and change over time? Which use cases are more important or become more important?
Yeah, well, I think it depends on the geographies. It really, and time will tell us that. But I see during this COVID period, there is a lot on logistics. So I think those use cases become more and more when it comes to marketplace and logistics, how we can make sure, because in logistics, time is the currency, how we can come closer to real time and how we can be more personalized. I think that is where our role would increase over time. And that is the thing which I can see right now.
Okay, so maybe the COVID has made us rethink the supply chain and maybe think about the fact that just in time might not always be just the best thing. So do you think IoT is going to, maybe the models that have all been around, that kind of just in time and a very lean way of operating, do you think that might have to shift a little bit? And or do you think it won't really change IoT, but it might change the business model, the operations model for customers?
Yeah, I think it will need to evolve, and you're right. And we are having our so-called IoT talks later this month, which is a big event for us. And we see the partners which are coming, they are from various parts of that value chain, and demanding not just in time, but here and now. And so it's kind of that whole compute need, that whole proximity, that whole quickness and self-assurance and management, subscription management. I think those are increasingly growing.
Okay, so do you feel like Edge is going to be really, really important here? And could you talk a little bit about Tele2’s approach to Edge applications?
Yeah, I mean, I think Edge is important, but it's also evolving. Gaming is maybe one of the key things, and Sweden, of course, is a pretty vast. So when it comes to latency, Edge really helps. And our view is, again, use case driven, customer driven. And we see that when it comes to entertainment, Edge plays much more important role when it comes to serving private enterprises, and we have multiple data centers. So Edge plays also a big role there.
So one of our speakers yesterday said that the Edge is wherever it needs to be. Do you kind of agree with that? Because for different applications and different customers, the infrastructure and how you address it will be different.
Yeah, and that's where I would agree with that statement in general. But again, I would go a little bit deeper, that it's not only where it is, but if you don't design properly and mobilize your design, then you would end up showing it on a P&L or charging to the customer. So I think that very fundamental, yet maybe rhetoric and robotic, that design and mobilization is going to be key in Edge as well.
Okay, can I just take you back a little bit as well? Earlier on, we talked about being data-driven, which is the hallmark of digital companies. And I mean, are you seeing 5G as a really good opportunity to change or to evolve data and how it's collected and how you store it and the formats that it is in? Because I mean, operators have been fighting with data and how to do all those things for a decade. Frankly, I'm not sure there's been that much progress made. I don't know. So 5G seems to me maybe a good fresh start in a cloud native environment, and then maybe evolve the other legacy stuff. Not all of it. It'll depend on all sorts of things. But I mean, is that how you see it?
I think you are pointing something really sharp and straight to the point. I think yes, 5G gives us another chance, but in today's world with LTE advanced, with fiber to the building, fiber to the home, we have the data. How do we combine the data, use the insights, ask the consent from the customer, and make sure that we really become fact-driven? I think that is a journey we are on as Tele2, and we take a lot of pride in that, it sometimes it needs more patience because you want to see what you believe, but data may not show what you believe. And then you say, no, then I want to change the data. I don't like that data. It doesn't work like that. So that's a maturing journey, and it brings actually people together. And a big pedestal of diversity and inclusion for us is to become fact-driven. No prestige. Let's just be fact-driven.
When you're talking about a fact-driven as well, you know, data is kind of the raw fuel for automation, which is fundamental to 5G as well. And
Correct.
I mean, it does seem to me that it's potentially a little bit of a stumbling block on the way to autonomous networks. How far out do you see autonomous networks being, Yogesh? A network that runs itself?
Well, I think it again depends. You're talking mass scale or you're talking pockets. I can tell you about Tele2's vision. We want to be fact-driven. We call that self-healing. So it's basically one should be more targeted, where to invest, where to solve, how to move forward. And we would see a big jump next year for us. So next 2 years, as we are mass rolling out 5G across the countries, our geographies, including the Baltics, I think it becomes very, very clear that data journey needs to go at a faster pace than that. So that when we introduce 5G, we become much more smarter, where to go first, how to address that customer, and how not only to bring 5G as a logo on the phone and higher speed, but actually make more clearer platform and ecosystem with that.
Okay, well, Yogesh, thank you. I've enjoyed our conversation a great deal. We're just about out of time now as we go into the break. Thank you very much, and I look forward to a session in a future event to see how you're progressing. Many thanks.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It was great.